This week's episode of Emerging Tech Horizons is brought to you by Raytheon, a company of forward thinkers with more than 55,000 employees around the globe and products in 58 customer countries. Raytheon has established itself as a trusted partner. From launch to impact, we give our customers a decisive advantage. Customer-driven, technology-powered Raytheon, revolutionizing defense capabilities.
Hello, and welcome to the Emerging Technology Horizons podcast. My name is Arun Seraphin. I'm Executive Director of NDIA's Emerging Technologies Institute. Today, we're here on the road visiting Letterkenny Army Depot in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. The Army Depot here is responsible for the production and sustainment of many different kinds of Army systems, ranging from ground vehicles to missile systems to lots of other things. Today, we're going to talk about the interface between their mission set and emerging technologies. I'm joined today by Kate Williams, who's Director of Strategic Management here at Letterkenny, and Chris Ghigliotti, who's an electronics engineer here at Letterkenny. Give me a chance to do a little bit about your bios. We'll get into the conversation about how you all interface with emerging technologies and national defense. Kate is a civilian here at Department of the Army for over 14 years. She wore a uniform for 12 years in the Army. During her time in uniform, her duty assignments included Korea, Fort Bragg, Bosnia, Fort Riley, Iraq, and Aberdeen Proving Ground. She was worked as an ordnance officer during her time. Now she works in supply chain management, program management, sales and operational planning, and production management at Letterkenny. Chris graduated from University of Oklahoma with a degree in electrical engineering, and as well as recently a master's degree from Naval Postgraduate School. He started his government career at Tinker Air Force Base, working for the Air Force in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, working as a software engineer, working on test program sets for platforms like the B-1 and B-2 bombers. Last 5 years, 2015, transferred to Letterkenny here, now from Air Force to Army. You work as an electronic engineer supporting various programs, including Patriot missile system, and most recently as the lead engineer for directed energy, hypersonics, future radar systems, classically emerging technology systems. So typically, our podcast, we think about science and technology, we think about laboratories. It's kind of surprising to all of us that we're here and took a great tour today of what goes on at the depot. Did I get that right? Depot. Looking at how you have this interface with what the Army and what DoD as a whole is trying to do in moving emerging technologies out into the field and then making sure that we can sustain them and keep them ready for use in times of operation. So, given your diverse backgrounds and the kind of mission here, tell us a little bit about how you came here and how those diverse backgrounds are supporting what you're doing here.
So first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Seraphin. We really appreciate you coming. We appreciate you bringing your staff. We've really benefited from the podcasts that ETI has done. We've listened to those and taken them to move our business forward as well. And so we're very grateful to all of you and the work that you do. So I came to Letterkenny straight out of the Army, as you said. I thought I was going to be a soldier for my whole life. My husband used to say if he cut my arm off, I'd bleed green. But I had my son in 2003. 5 months later, I deployed to Iraq with my company. And back then, it was just deployment back-to-back deployments. So I left the Army to be a mother because I couldn't do both things well, but I still wanted to serve. And so I came to Letterkenny Army Depot, and I've been a government employee ever since, and I'm proud to continue my service to the warfighter.
I started out my government career then, like I said, at Tinker Air Force Base, and what brought me here was just life changes and looking for opportunities out east. So my background, really, it's just in electronics engineering. So here they had a need for an electronics engineer for Patriot. So I came out this way and fulfilling that role, and then now fulfilling that role as an electronics engineer, trying to help stand up the depot for sustainment of these future weapon systems in the directed energy, hypersonics, and some of the future radar systems.
So Letterkenny's part of what's called the organic industrial base. NDIA more traditionally thinks about the defense industrial base. So for our viewers, what's the difference? What's the relationship between those two things?
Sure, that's a great question. So Letterkenny Army Depot is one of 5 hard iron depots within the Army. We are all technology focused to a certain community. So our portfolio is aligned to air missile defense, long-range precision fire, power generation, and route clearance vehicles. We've been able to gain those competencies over a period of 80 years. We started out as an ordnance depot. From that, we got into tearing down systems and then building systems back up. And as you mentioned earlier on, a depot is so much more than just sending your equipment someplace to get deep maintenance done on it. We do so much more as far as meeting whatever the customer's requirements are. So, for example, we do Patriot Reset, where an entire battalion set gets railheaded into the depot, the equipment gets offloaded, we bring it back up to fully mission capable. We apply any safety applications that need to happen. We do modernization as well, and we do all of that within 130 days. So we turn that entire battalion set around and give it back to the soldier. And during that time, the soldiers are off doing leave. They're recovering from their deployment, and then we're able to get their equipment back to them so they can get right back into the training cycle. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we also do what we call recapitalization, where we'll bring a system in, we'll tear it all the way down to its barest component, and then we'll build it back up and we'll put it back out in the field so it'll be 0 hours, 0 miles, and it extends the serviceable life of equipment. We're also doing a lot of work now with Army Futures Command, as well as preparing for the signature modernization effort workload. And so, we showed you some of the work we're doing today, where we're taking current equipment and upgrading it and giving it new capabilities so that we can put it back out in the field. And then the work that Chris is doing is helping us prepare for what's coming down the road. These signature modernization efforts, this is a once in a generation upgrade of the Army's equipment. And so we're preparing to be able to sustain that in the future as well.
So when you typically think of depots, when you typically think of O&M and sustainment, you think you're far removed from the world of science and technology and emerging technology. So how does the Army typically tie you into the modernization strategies that they're developing for the future?
And so it's a fantastic question. About 3 years ago, the AMC commander, Army Materiel Command Commander, General Daly at the time, he decided that his priority was going to be to modernize the industrial base, and so to bring all of the facilities, all of the equipment, and most especially all of the artisans' technical competency up to the 21st century, and then prepared to support beyond. And so here at Letterkenny, what we did was we put together cross-functional teams where we brought in engineers and we brought in facilities folks and we brought in shop floor folks, and we came up with ways that we could develop these adaptable technologies that would help today, tomorrow, and then into the future as well.
So, Chris, when I think about emerging technologies overlapped with your mission set, I guess I think about it in two categories. One is emerging technologies can help you execute your missions, and the other is your mission is going to be applied to emerging technologies like directed energy and hypersonics. You talk about how you're doing a little bit of both here at Letterkenny?
Sure. So some of the emerging technologies that we're utilizing here at the depot would be cold spray would be a good example. So cold spray is a relatively new application of additive manufacturing, and it's the process of blowing out small particulate metal onto a substrate, which allows us to kind of help mitigate some of those corrosion issues that we see as a depot trying to sustain these systems. So we're working with Penn State ARL to help develop some of those processes and some of those unique formulas of that powder material.
So that's a direct connection with the research university.
Correct. And so we're working to apply that application of additive manufacturing. And one good case is a particular project. We're looking at some damage on a cab, and normally that cab would cost $750,000 to replace. But we were able to cold spray it, then machine that surface back down to spec, and then put that back into service for a matter of a few $1,000s versus $750,000, and also a great reduction in time to get that through the shops.
And I'm imagining for the university faculty and those students, this is a chance they might not get to actually see their research put to work, to see it used by practicing engineers, to then see it fielded in such a rapid fashion.
Right, real world situation. It is a good. I know, like when I was in college, yeah, you didn't really get to see that. So it is really cool I would hope it's really cool from a student perspective to see their work being put into real world use.
So now on the other side, so that's an advanced technology cold spray used to support vehicle sustainment. New and emerging technologies is that the Army's thinking about hypersonics, directed energy. Now, how are you positioning Letterkenny to think about those technologies and their sustainment into the future?
Right. So right now we've been working with organizations like the Directed Energy Professional Societies to start getting aware of what that technology is going to involve as far as sustainment and what we're going to need to do as a depot to stand up that capability, and also looking at some of the unique opportunities here at Letterkenny. So one of the things that we're looking at doing right now, we're conducting a feasibility study on a high energy laser range where we could bring out systems that are being developed.
A test range.
Yes, a test range where organizations, public or private, could come and test their laser system as part of developmental testing. So think of small counter UAS applications. So we'd had this range where they could fly a drone and be able to engage that drone to collect performance parameters on that and make sure that the system is doing the full kill chain, and also like later on turn that range into part of the sustainment operation. So after we've done an overhaul on a health system, be able to do that full system test, just like a acceptance test would do when you're building a brand new system. We do that same sort of testing on any system that we've overhauled. So it would be a really good application of that range.
It's been amazing to see the facilities that you have here, just the amount of area you have, the different kinds of facilities ranging from electronics laboratories to huge bays where you can refurbish large Army vehicles to legitimately research stations where people are doing research in anything ranging from the electronics to the subsystems in a radar system. And it's going on with a workforce that's both the skilled craftsmen to the electronics engineers to people understand the dollars and cents and timing of sustaining Army systems. And all of that workforce is here at Letterkenny supporting the Army mission. That was a real eye-opener for me to see today. So, Chris, there's this desire to deploy emerging technologies and new weapon systems, and there's always a desire to go faster. And then people seem to forget that a big part of that is then sustaining those systems in the field. So how do we bring the voice of the sustainment community more into those discussions about what it takes to legitimately deploy an emerging technology, an emerging system?
So one of the things that we're doing is we're forming public-private partnerships with some of the OEMs for these DE systems. So we're hoping to incorporate our lessons learned from sustainment into some of these DE systems, some of these emerging systems, so that these systems are sustainable from the beginning,
from the design end.
From the design end. So as they're designing their system, we can say, hey, you might want to consider this type of material, or maybe providing an access panel here, because when we go to sustain that later on, you could reduce the number of hours it's going to take to sustain that system dramatically by just having an access panel, so you don't have to take out several different LRUs to be able to get to that one broken part buried in the system.
And then that's a partially developing the right kind of partnership then between industry and government.
Totally agree.
And so, you're sometimes really working side by side. It's not just a classic customer and vendor relationship, right? So this is definitely a community that's understanding how to better partner with defense industry to deliver the products that the warfighter needs.
Right, and it'll improve that system so it's more sustainable, so more usable by the operators, and it's going to reduce the taxpayers' dollars long term, and it'll be a good partnership.
So either Chris or Kate, that can't be the easiest thing to do. What are some challenges when you're trying to develop those kinds of partnerships between government and industry?
So I think one of the biggest challenges is people's preconceived notions about what a depot is, who can access a depot, who can partner with a depot. Hopefully we were able to give you and your staff a good eye-opening tour today of how broad a range of capabilities and competencies that we have. Our current customer portfolio represents all sorts of industries across public-private partnerships and government inter-service and FMS communities as well. We have about 1,500 employees. And as you mentioned, they're cross the board with electronics, mechanical, and program management and engineering as well. And so we really offer a range of services, not just repairing, but also fabricating. We routinely send deployment teams into the field to field equipment. We do engineering services as well. So, we can partner almost, we're so flexible in being able to partner. It's just getting our name out there and letting people know who we are and what we do.
Yeah, it's a hidden resource that, honestly, from my days on Capitol Hill, we paid for. And it should be out there in service of both the Army and DoD more broadly, but even industry and universities if they have the ability to access it. You touched on your large workforce and their diversity. So tell us about how you build and shape that workforce. I know you're doing some STEM pilot programs, for example. Can you touch on some of your workforce efforts and the kind of workforce you need to execute these missions?
Sure. I'll hit on the enduring, and then I'll pass it over to Chris to talk about how we're developing future. So our workforce is at the core of everything that we do. We are absolutely investing in being able to create opportunities to upskill the workforce and allow the workforce to transition. We talk about the depot being the carrier of the ember. The depots are the one that maintain that knowledge base throughout sustainment and allow us to transition from weapon system to weapon system. So Letterkenny was originally an expert in Nike, and then we went into Hawk, and now we're in Patriot. And so being able to maintain those competencies through those transitions has served us well in the past and will serve us well in the future. And so we're constantly looking at ways to increase our current workforce, their competencies and skills, as well as help them transition to new skills and new future skills. One of the things that Chris has been doing is working on bringing in, young folks from the local area to help transition us toward directed energy and these new weapon systems. And so, first in the nation, or first in the Letterkenny nation, is the STEM program that he's working on with our local high school. And so I'll let Chris talk about that.
This actually was started through the DEPS, the Directed Energy Professional Society, and Christina Krausen was here at Letterkenny for a tour, and she mentioned her desire to restart their STEM outreach program. And she asked for our assistance in helping stand that up. So they put together the curriculum.
Putting more high energy lasers in the hands of kids.
So low power lasers. But they went ahead and put together the curriculum, and we put together a kit that kind of helps reinforce those DE concepts. And the goal with that is to generate interest in middle school and high school students in some directed energy field, whether it's electronics engineering or optics technician or engineer, or any of those supporting roles. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to come to the defense industry. It could be out there in just regular commercial, but just to kind of help make those students aware of those opportunities and then how cool they can really be.
Right. I mean, thinking about working on lasers, you would think is inspiring to stick it out through your math and science classes if you get to work on something like
and
that.
We did get to drop off the first couple of kits at our local Chambersburg area high school. And the students were like, they're really excited. You could see the excitement in their eyes. And it was really cool because like that's kind of how I started in engineering, was a similar program, but it was called Bot Ball, and it was a robotics competition. And so before then I was going to be a carpenter. So I went from carpenter to mechanical engineer to electrical engineer. But it was that robotics competition that really kind of sparked that interest. So I really have a passion for doing these sorts of outreach programs. So we're also looking at other opportunities with the local high schools, like getting involved with their science fairs. There's other robotics competitions that are in our area that we can get involved with. So we're looking at sending reps out to be mentors to those groups.
One of the things I should have mentioned is that, the Army's invested a lot in its workforce. And so one of the future projects here at Letterkenny is the High Velocity Training Center, where there's an infusion of dollars into, artisan level training that will help us build those allied trades. And it is a way that we
allied
can
trades like
allied trades like welding, painting, and mechanical and electrical. And it is a way that we can offset costs to our partners who come to us for workload because we've already got a trained and ready workforce. And so that's just another value that we bring to the table.
And so during today's discussions and the tour, you talked about even some of the work that you're doing with the other services, and this is really a joint operation in some ways. Can you talk about some of the work you're doing for the other services?
Absolutely. And what we were talking about before is, in the past, we were very focused on our own workload, our own foxhole, our own community. But the infusion of modernization has really made us lift our heads up from our own work and really look and see what is everybody else doing? What are the best practices that are working well for our particular customer, the warfighter? How do we bring in technologies today that support a wide range of different portfolios and different weapon systems to be able to cut costs, to be able to turn around assets faster? And so, one of the ways we've really changed over the past 5 years or so is we've become a better inter-service partner. So we've worked with the Air Force and seen what they've done with the amazing things that they've done with robotics. We work with the Marine Corps and seen the things that they've done with their shop floor automation. We've worked with the Navy on expanding our ability to manage large-scale projects and things that, maybe the shipyards aren't best designed to support. They've come to an Army depot, and we're much better able to support their requirements and provide that value back to the community.
So now when thinking about the NDIA membership, right, big companies and small companies, universities, individuals in government service, can you talk a little bit about the kinds of services and facilities that might be open for them to partner with you and use here, and how they actually find you and try to make use of those?
Absolutely. So the role of a depot is twofold. One is we are providing sustainment support to program managers, to public-private partnerships, to support the warfighter today. So based off the requirements that are forecasted for us today, we are staffed to support that. In addition, the depot is required to carry capacity, competency, and capabilities to respond to a surge. And so we have all of that surge capability available to partner with. And so we are a turnkey solution for partners looking to, somebody that brings tech data to the table, or somebody that brings a requirement that supports the warfighter community to the table. And the list of things we'll say no to is very small. The list of things that we will say yes to is huge. And so really, we're just looking for some motivated folks to come and partner with us. And, if you think you'd be interested in working with the OIB, at the end of the podcast, we're going to be able to put a group email up for you to contact, and we'll get back in touch with you. And we'd just like you to come out and see our facilities and meet us. And as long as I don't have this microphone in my hand, it'll be wonderful.
And it was a great tour. I will vouch for their tour giving ability. So, Chris, looking back now, you were an electronics engineer. Who knows what you wanted to do? You've ended up in this world of sustainment and sustaining these systems and thinking about emerging technologies. So tell us why that is either a good choice or not a good choice. I'm sure the answer is it's a good choice. Why is this such an important thing for us to be thinking about?
So it was definitely a good choice. I've definitely enjoyed my career as an electronics engineer. My mission is to support the warfighter. So I two brothers who are one was in the service and one is still in the service, and I have a brother-in-law who's in the service. So I'm very much focused on supporting the warfighter, and this has been a really good way. And there's a lot of really exciting opportunities, both for helping others, but then also some of the things I've been able to do, like getting my master's in systems engineering through the Naval Postgraduate School. So that was a really awesome program the Army funded. So it was an opportunity that I applied for and got accepted into, and Letterkenny supported very much so. So that was a really awesome opportunity. So now I'm looking to apply that systems engineering education to what we're doing here at Letterkenny to improve our business model and improve our sustainment of these DE systems and other systems.
So that's great. And I want to thank both Kate and Chris for joining me today on the podcast at Letterkenny here, where you're classically doing work both in service of the taxpayer, saving us money on the cost of our systems, and for the warfighter, right? Improving the readiness, making sure they have what they need and making sure it works the way they need it to work when they need it to work. And that's the most important role maybe that we can all be playing in the defense system. And it's nice to hear that you're looking for workforce, technical workforce, and you're looking for industry partners. And that's great for our NDIA membership to hear. So with that, thank you again both for joining us today on the Emerging Technology Horizons podcast. If you like the podcast, I hope you can like our podcast on YouTube. You can also subscribe there. We're also available on Spotify and other platforms. Please keep an eye out on our website and our YouTube channel for all of our papers, our webinars, and our other activities. And thank you again for joining us today on Emerging Technologies Horizons podcast.